roasted, bro. I'm sorry. Like, I ain't here for that. Hey, help me. We're having rotate upside down.
I want Mr. Knight to come. If Mr. Knight doesn't come today, I'll be mad.
A night.
Yes. Miss Buckfowler's here. Okay, if Miss Knight's Mr.
Hold on, I
Knight's
gotta
here,
work this out.
then I'll
Give me
be
a sec.
mad. A knife.
I have my knife with me. Where is it?
Julie, my internet's not working, but usually it does. Hey. Can you write it down?
My.
This meeting will be helpful so long as Mr. Knight is here.
Who is Mr. Knight?
How do you not know who Mr. Knight is?
Oh. You only got 1 star on that.
Did I win?
No, you got all the stars.
Oh, oops. Thank you. Can you please pray that Mr. Knight comes? Because I love Mr. Knight.
Fun.
Yep. Go slow. Maybe go faster.
See me in the look. All 3 stars. And then you get a little. Oh boy. Oh, yeah. Well, show me love.
You have everything on your thing, right? Can you get everything ready? Because I don't think my computer's going to work.
Yeah, you mean like SBR and stuff?
SBR and the...
Well, my question for you is, if people are here to talk to us about union issues, and we've got the sunshine on the agenda, isn't that where, I mean, if that's what they're here to talk about, we're sunshining contract negotiations, is that the time? I mean, I don't know how hard-nosed to be about that.
I don't know what they're here to talk about.
Yeah, well, they're wearing Union Yes shirts. It looks like this is all about Paris.
Salary could be.
If it's Paris salaries, that's what's on the agenda for sunshining. I don't.
Yeah, it's a public hearing on sunshine.
Well, that's what a public hearing is for, is to tell us, right?
But that would be negotiating in public. We can't respond. If it's even if it's unagendized, we can't respond because we'd be negotiating in public.
Yeah.
So we might as well just let him talk.
I suppose, yeah. I feel like we should point it out.
Okay.
I mean, there's right there, the signs are there. It's all about we're going to harass you and scream at you when you can't say anything.
Yeah, that's good because we couldn't say anything anyway.
That's true. That is true. Well, we can. We can point out that there's no point in talking to us because your union is going to be negotiating with us. Right?
That's true.
My patience for this is not very...
Good evening. We're going to call back to order the regular meeting for the Albany Unified School District Board of Education for Tuesday, May 18th, 2018. May we have a roll call, please? Here.
Stapleton Gray.
Here.
Board Member Blanchard.
Here.
Board Member Clark.
Here.
Board Member Trutain.
Here.
Student Board Member Ataniak.
Here.
Student Board Member Silwall.
Here.
Thank you. For those who wish to participate, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready? Begin.
Thank you. We have the reading of the Albany Unified School District mission and vision statement, please.
Absolutely. The mission of the Albany Unified School District is to provide excellent public education that empowers all to achieve their fullest potential as productive citizens. AUSD is committed to creating comprehensive learning opportunities in a safe, supportive, and collaborative environment, addressing the individual needs of each student.
Thank you. The board took no action in closed session. Before we approve the agenda, we got a request, since Clell Hoffman will be here for the school spotlight, and we would like him available to answer questions on item N2. We'd just like to move item N2 up to before the first staff report, so he doesn't have to sit here and wait an extra hour, if that's okay with the board. So with that one change, does anyone else have any changes they'd like to the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda
With that change?
with that change.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, we have 2 employee recognitions tonight, Teacher Appreciation Week and Classified Employees Appreciation Week.
Thank you, President Black, trustees, student board members, and members of the audience. I always enjoy introducing these items because this is in recognition for our Albany Unified School District staff. And whether you are a classified or a certificated employee, you are all educators. And the work that you do, your dedication, your caring, your mentorship, your support is greatly appreciated. And today is really just I hate to say a token, but it's a way of us being able to share our appreciation for you. And I would like to actually turn this item over to our new Director of Human Resources, Cheryl Cotton. Ms. Cotton.
Thank you very much, and I want to, for all of our educators here, and as you said, our certificate and our classified employees are all educators, all here to support our children. Dr. King said that intelligence plus character, that is a true goal of education, and we have a hand in that with all the young people that we encounter from preschool age to adults. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you for all that you do. Board President Black, are you comfortable going ahead to read the resolution?
Do we have it printed out?
I'm looking for.
Or is there, you
Actually,
have
do we
the
have? Yes, thank you. That's what we're looking for.
Teacher Appreciation Week.
And actually, before you read that, do we have our ATA co-presidents here? Nor. Stephen, would you mind please coming up as a representative of ATA leadership, please?
Steve? Okay, Teacher Appreciation Week, whereas the Governing Board of the Albany Unified School District and Superintendent Williams wish to commend and express their appreciation to the teachers, counselors, program specialists, psychologists, speech-language therapists, and all certificated staff who serve the students of the Albany Unified School District. And whereas the Governing Board and Superintendent recognize that unique and highly specialized skills are required to meet the varied needs of the young people served by district instructional programs, and are proud of the success that these programs have achieved. And whereas the certificated staff who daily touch our students' lives have a tremendous influence on their hopes, aspirations, and future success, making each student capable of taking up the challenges of life and not only guide our students academically, but also instill moral and ethical values. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Governing Board of the Albany Unified School District proclaims May 7th to May 11th, 2018 to be Teacher Appreciation Week. Be it further resolved that the governing board of the Albany Unified School District encourages all members of our community to join with it in personally expressing appreciation to our teachers for their dedication and devotion to their work. So we need a motion to pass this resolution.
I'll make a motion to pass resolution number 17-18-20.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Second, and aye.
Oh, thank you for the second, yes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good. So passed and adopted by the governing board of the Albany Unified School District on the 8th of May. By the vote, ayes 7, noes 0, no absent, no abstentions. So we'll just write that in here. Thank you.
There we go.
All right. Okay.
What do I smell like? Oh, God. What do I smell like? Fries.
It's good luck.
We also have employee recognition for our classified employees for Classified Appreciation Week. And I do like to call this group our unsung heroes because you do a lot of the behind-the-scenes work, and whether you are one of our secretaries, paraprofessionals, all of our support staff, we know that you impact our students, and sometimes you know things that students need before the rest of us do. And so your contribution is greatly appreciated. And we have a resolution also for classified. I'll turn this over to.
Right. I actually have 2 copies of this because we have 2 classified
That is
unions.
correct. We have a, right.
Okay. So does anyone want to come up to represent the union?
Mrs. Renee, there you go.
Okay, Albany Unified School District Board of Education Resolution Number 2017-1821, Classified Employees Appreciation Week. Whereas the governing board of the Albany Unified School District and Superintendent Williams wish to commend and express their appreciation to the custodial and maintenance staff, child nutrition staff, clerical staff, instructional support staff, computer support staff, and all other classified staff who serve the students of the Albany Unified School District. And whereas the governing board and superintendent believe classified school employees deserve rightful recognition and public celebration for the caring deeds and contributions to our students. And whereas the classified employees support the smooth operation of offices, the safety and maintenance of buildings and property, and the safe transportation, healthy nutrition, and direct instruction of students. Now therefore be it resolved that the governing board of the Albany Unified School District proclaims May 21st to 15th, 2018 to be Classified Employees Appreciation Week. Be it further resolved that the governing board of the Albany Unified School District encourages all members of our community to join with it in personally expressing appreciation to our classified employees for their dedication and devotion to their work. Do we have a motion to pass this resolution?
I move we pass this resolution.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and adopted by the governing board of the Albany Unified School District on this 8th day of May, 2018, by the following vote. Ayes 7, noes 0, 0 absent, 0 abstentions.
One more?
And we have one more resolution. This is for our employees who are part of the SEIU. These are our custodial staff and our maintenance and operations staff. And so I really want to thank them for all their support. They keep our schools clean, they keep them well maintained, and they make our learning environment for kids optimal. So I really want to thank our SEIU folks for coming tonight, and we really want to recognize and honor you. And And do we have a representative from SEIU who, brave, come on up.
It's the same resolution. It's already
It's the same
been-
resolution.
So we just have, does someone want to come up to accept the certificate?
SEIU?
Anyone?
No? Okay, we'll
Anyone
make
in
sure
the-
that they get it. Thank you.
You're not Dumbledore. Calm down. Look at this. Wait, look at this survey.
Hey, thank you. We have a school spotlight tonight on child nutrition.
Thank you, President Black. Trustees, I'd like to turn this over to Claude Hoffman, who is our executive chef, who will be presenting this report. Mr. Hoffman.
So this evening, first of all, thank you. I'm really excited to come to the board and present my findings from the survey that you approved for us to do. I can't remember exactly when it was, but we conducted the survey at the end of January, and we have the full report, which I think is in the board packet. And tonight I'll just be highlighting just quickly the full presentation is 26 pages long, so it wasn't really appropriate to go through every slide tonight. So one of the reasons that I wanted to do this was because while food sales have increased over the past 7 years, over 40%, and you can see here on the slide, this is a graph, the meals served have decreased. So our participation rate has gone down, but our sales have gone up. And this is due to a la carte sales, you can see in the yellow, have gone up. And then also breakfast sales have also increased. So we need to increase our participation in the food service program so we can cover the rising costs of benefits, mostly in the way of PERS, so we can stay solvent and not be encroaching on the general fund. So this is the survey. We had the over 1,100 kids at the high school that could participate. We got a great sample size of over 400. And you can see there's a pretty even mix of the different grades. So this question was about the food in general. And it's really encouraging because it shows that there was a high percentage of kids who enjoy the quality of the food. If you have the frequently and the always section, is pretty high in there. So this is really interesting. Our biggest, this is due to write-in responses, and there's a category about write-in responses, and the biggest thing the kids were concerned about was variety and the lines. Adding variety is going to give us the opportunity to add new diners and retain the diners we have, and the lines are our biggest barrier for participation. The lines are frustrating for the kids. It was mentioned quite a bit. And it causes social friction within the cafeteria. Kids don't want to be calling each other out. They get frustrated. And only 18% of the kids mentioned quality as a concern. This doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to work on quality. We'll always work on quality. But it's really a good sign that the kids are enjoying the food. These are a couple of quotes that we got from kids. We did some personal interviews. And again, it talks about the lines in the school. One of the issues was the cutting in lines, and so we need to look at a way that we can logistically change the way the lines happen at the school. And then also, some of the kids just don't want to come to the cafeteria because they don't want to wait in line. Although we serve all of the kids in about 15 minutes that eat lunch, and then they just trickle in. But for some reason, there's some psychology around lines, so people just don't want to be in lines. So this one was about, we have a system in place right now where kids would be able to order their food ahead of time. But I've been hesitant to put that in place because we've had staffing issues with having enough staff, and I don't want to create a system that we can't then maintain. If you have a restaurant and you offer a service and kids get excited or customers get excited about that, and then you take it away, it can affect your business. We treat the food services very much like a business in terms of wanting to keep our customers and keep them happy. And as far as the lines go, we, I'm sorry. Am I on the wrong one? As far as the lines go, we also tracked how many transactions we did, and we were doing one every 15 seconds, so it's not necessarily an issue with the lines. Oh, I think how do you go back? I think I'm off one. Yeah, I think oh, there we go. So most of the kids we found learn about each day's lunch on the day that lunch happens. And so therefore, we realized that we need to do more marketing and promotion, maybe through social media, maybe using satellite monitors around the school perhaps. This could help with moving the lines along, and students will be more decisive because they'll know what they want when they get there. So most of the kids don't really use their mobile device to make decisions. But I think there's opportunities in this through promotion, online, using social media, interactive pre-ordering and polling to find out in that day what kids thought about the food. We need time to facilitate these changes, but I think it can really be helpful. I think I skipped a slide. So overall, these are the recommendations that came from the survey. So mostly, the biggest one was reducing the social friction within the cafeteria through the lines and the way that the kids are served, and then promote new offerings to promote the food and the healthy options. These changes, again, will require time collaboration with food service staff and site staff. We plan on having at least one, maybe two more access points on campus. So we've talked about utilizing the snack bar in the gym lobby area. Break is especially hard for the kids. They have 15 minutes to get from a seat in like the third floor back in the math department all the way down to the cafeteria, get in line, get the food, and be back in a seat. So we need to give them more access points, and students have requested this. It may help with the lines, but again, logistics are an important issue that we have to deal with. So this is what we found from the survey. You have questions?
So thank you very much for presenting the information, for doing the survey, for giving students a voice. I just wanted to highlight a couple things. You mentioned them, but I wanted to highlight them. First is that food services is providing high-quality food, and it's appreciated. And I think that came through in the survey. One of the slides I think you didn't show said that the #1 priority was food that's tasty, and you're getting high marks for that. So that's really good, and I think it just needs to be a point of congratulations. The other was that you briefly mentioned this, but I think the food service staff is serving a meal every 12 seconds. That's phenomenal. So, I think there's a lot of hard work going on there.
Yeah, my staff does a great job. I don't think it's an issue of speed or being
Right.
efficient in that way. It's
Right.
just it's a matter of having kids feel better about their experience.
Yeah, and then I think some of the things where there were recommendations for what could be done, maybe it's not entirely the responsibility of food services to do all of these. And I'm thinking in particular about the recommendation that somehow we think about providing more spots where students feel comfortable taking their lunch and eating. And I'm hoping that with the new addition to the high school, this will come about naturally, that there will be lots more spots where people can go and sit in smaller groups for lunch. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a couple years before that happens. But it's something that I think the district as a whole can do to help support the program.
Thanks, Navin.
Sure. So you talked a little bit about incorporating, I guess, different aspects of social media and the internet to kind of ease the, different burdens on the cafeteria. Have you considered diversifying payment methods, such as using apps like Venmo and stuff, which would allow kids to kind of use their phones to, pay for things when they maybe don't have cash or money on their cards? And on top of that, how else would you utilize social media or other platforms to really get the word out about different cafeteria choices and just different cafeteria news?
So as far as using other methods of payment, if we took, Venmo's, that's very interesting, because I don't know if that could work within a school district, because for those of you who don't know, Venmo is an app that you can have on your phone, and I can say, Charles, I'm going to pay you for dinner tonight, you paid for it, and I transfer money right to Charles' account. Other ways a lot of kids have asked for have been debit cards, or which means we'd be a credit card processor, and there's a fee that goes along with each transaction that the vendor has to pay. And so if that happened, then I would have to pass that along to the price of the food, and I don't know how students would react to that, but that's something we could explore. As far as the social media aspect, and it's not just social media. I have an app now that the students can access that will tell them what's for lunch that day, well, actually what's for lunch the entire month. And there's an online ordering section for that. And again, this is something I've been hesitant to do because I want to be consistent and make sure that I can, when I'm doing it, that it's going to stay consistent and be something that the kids can have access to. Well, that's another thing. And then as far as maybe there's some polling I can do online, Facebook, some of the different apps that the kids like to use, and then just putting things out there. Hey, try the new this, try the new that. Just again, promotion, letting kids know, because I don't think a lot of kids know what we're doing. Also offering up more of the nutritional aspect of it, because I think your generation is starting to appreciate eating healthy. So I think that's something important that I think that would, because a lot of kids don't realize that school lunch is actually healthy.
All right,
Does that answer your question?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks. Jacob, and then Kim.
Yeah, it wasn't so much a question, but a statement, and I was just hoping that, and I don't know if it's the food services responsibility, but if you guys could really look into the situation with the line. As I was reading through it and I saw some of the comments, I was thinking how frustrating it must be if you're waiting in line and time's running out, and quite a few kids just come up and cut in front of you, and if it's actually turning people away, it shouldn't be happening. And I know it's not like an easy solution to it, but students should be able to stand in line and not have people cut in front of them.
Yeah, I think that the site administration at the high school is going to be working with me to try to rectify it. You're right, it's not an easy problem to solve. We have stanchions there, and the students just move them every day. And also, maybe if there is more access points, students won't feel the need to cut. And I think this happens more so at the break, because there is such a small amount of time. And then also maybe the pre-ordering, students will go to that pre-order line, and it's kind of a catch-22, because if it gets so popular with that, then now there's a line for the pre-ordering food, but it'll be very quick. So, but I appreciate you pointing that out. We're really going to work on that.
Thank you.
Ms. Kim.
I just wanted to comment that I think it was a very worthwhile study. I'm glad that this was done because it did give the students a voice, and I think it gives a real direction to what will happen next. I also wanted to compliment you on your drive to continually innovate for food services in the district. I've been volunteering on the AMS lunch cart for 4 or 5 years, and there have been a lot of changes. You instituted a process where kids can use their lunch account at the snack cart, whereas before it was only cash, and that's helped a lot of kids be able to get things quickly. And when I started with the lunch cart, there wasn't hummus and whole wheat crackers, and there wasn't a number of the other really healthy options that a number of the kids do choose. So I appreciate all that you've been doing on food service innovation. Thanks.
Well, and thanks for saying that. And I want to say that those changes, the Blue Cart POS system being out there, came from the students' suggestion, and then the change of foods came from parents and students, where we got together and collaborated, did taste testing, and some of those new items came on board because of the community. So it was great to work with the community to make those changes.
Anyone else? Audience? Good. Well, I'd like to say I have eaten lunch in the cafeteria a few times, and the food really is good. And I appreciate all the work you're doing. And as Jim said, that you're continuing to innovate and move forward. So thank you very much for that.
Well, thanks for saying so, and thanks for the support of the board. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Okay. Next item is consent calendar. Thanks, Claude.
Mm-hmm.
So, does anyone have any comments or questions on the consent calendar? None? Do we have a motion?
I move we approve the consent calendar.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Still want to say Eunice.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Good. Okay, board and superintendent report.
Thank you, President Black, trustees. For my superintendent's report, I would like to recognize one of our Albany High School students. Mateo Rodriguez was honored at the April 27th Fiesta Fabulosa at Albany High School, where he received 2 framed certificates for being named a 2018, these are acronyms, I'll pronounce them out, CIEE CLTA Student of the Year, and that stands for Council for International Education and the Exchange in California Language Teachers Association. He received a $2,500 award to study Spanish languages and cultures this summer as a CIE Global Navigator in Palma de Mallorca. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Mateo wrote this. He said, "I'm so honored and grateful to have received this award. I'm really looking forward to studying abroad in Palma de Mallorca this summer. I want to thank Kelly Britt, Professor Lynn McAllister, and CIEE for their support and for making this opportunity possible." So I really want to congratulate Mateo for receiving this award and recognition. Thank you.
Thanks. Any board members have something to report? Oh, how about the student board members report?
The Albany Middle School Parent Information Night for incoming 6th graders will be held on Wednesday, May 16th from 7 through 8 p.m. All incoming 6th grade parents/guardians are invited to the AMS gym to get an overview of the Albany Middle School 6th grade experience.
Principal's Coffee is Friday, June 1st from 8 to 9 a.m. in the AMS library. This is a less formal opportunity to come and talk to and ask questions of Ms. Brill, and this is for typically incoming 6th graders. To expect for parents to know what they expect next year for their classes. Principal Brill will be visiting each 5th grade class in May during library time to answer students' questions about transitioning in middle school. Also in June, students will be coming to AMS for tours during the school day.
On Thursday, May 24th, the Science Investigations Fair will be held in the multipurpose room from 6:30 through 8:30 p.m. Ms. Wong, our science specialist, is working with our 4th and 5th graders to prepare them for this exciting evening. Participation is optional for K through 3rd graders.
Throughout the week, staff at Cornell will be treated to decorated doors, a catered lunch from Cafe Raj, made-to-order coffee drinks from Eunice Cafe, pizza from Little Star, gift cards, flowers, and homemade baked goodies in appreciation of them. Thank you, staff.
Albany High School is having their annual prom on June 2nd and at the Chabot Space and Science Center. We hope it is out of this world.
And that concludes the student board report.
Thanks. Any questions or comments from the students? Okay. We have persons to address the board on matters not on the agenda. I want to point out that towards the end of the meeting, we have a public hearing to sunshine negotiation proposal for CSEA. So if you want to comment on salaries, that would be the time to do it. If you just want to, I see a lot of you here from CSEA. If you're here to talk about paras in general and how important they are, this would be the time to talk about that. We ask that each of you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, and that if somebody else already said what you want to say, please, so that we can keep things moving, just say, I agree with what they said, and then give someone else a chance to speak. So with that, please come up and tell us what you want to say.
Hi, thank you for being here. I am a paraeducator. I have been a paraeducator and a member of this community for about 15 years now. I stumbled into it while volunteering as a parent in kindergarten, and I continued with the job for a couple reasons. So this kind of touches on salary, but it doesn't really dive into it. For a couple reasons, none of which was the pay. It started with being able to have the same schedule as my kids. It turned into a love and keen ability of helping these students in serious need of extra support. These students that play a big part in our community. My AUSD paycheck does not and has not ever even come close to sustaining our family. We're fortunate enough to have a parental unit that can keep us going. Albany Unified School District is fortunate that I and others have been able to stay working at this position. Many of my coworkers have 2 or more jobs to try to make ends meet. In my years here, I've worked with lots of paras fit for this work, but they don't stay due to the wages. They can't stay due to the wages. It takes a certain type of person to connect with these students successfully. We as a district should consider ourselves incredibly lucky when we find folks that are able and willing to do this job. And I think that we should show our respect and appreciation with, with a decent living wage. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Olinda Scher. I've worked as a paraprofessional for 18 years. My fellow paraeducators and I live under extreme financial burden. Many of us work outside the classrooms to make ends meet. Some of us work as private tutors weekdays and weekends. Others go directly from their school site to clean commercial offices in San Francisco, working until 11 o'clock at night, every night, and get up the next morning to support our students with special needs. This job isn't done without special sacrifices, yet us all in the teaching profession, especially paraeducators, are shown how little the school district values us, our students with special needs, and their education. Even though we all know, or should know, that investing in education is not only investing in our children's future, but in the future of our society as well, we pay teachers deplorably and devalue them in the process. It is high time to turn our priorities around. In order to uphold this service to our students with special needs and attract more people to work as paraeducators, we need compensation per year that are above poverty levels in the Bay Area. It is time for all of us to resist the demeaning, devaluing, and depreciating pay that makes educators scramble for second and third jobs. We need a raise.
Jacob?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a suggestion real quick. I was wondering if we can move up the CSEA item to now so we can actually respond and they don't have to wait around for an hour.
Okay, so yes, I think we can. The slight complication, if you're not here to talk about paraeducator pay, then we'd ask you to talk now, because then we will immediately after this have our public hearing on the CSEA Sunshine, which would be the appropriate time to talk about paraeducator pay. Okay, so those of you who want to talk about something else, please come up and talk now, and then we'll transition immediately from there into the public hearing. Thank you.
Good evening, President and Board. Brian Parsley, Albany resident, also a parent of an Albany middle schooler. It's kind of a difficult situation to talk about here because I'm going to talk about what happened at the last meeting and the situation that I think has grown untenable for this community. First off, I will say that I believe that the decision that you made was the correct decision, a correct legal decision. I believe it was the correct decision because this whole situation was completely bungled from the beginning by the administration, by staff, and by this board. I don't understand who could possibly think that have a restorative justice at the high school during that climate. What are you thinking? I mean, down the line, everything with this whole situation has been screwed up from the beginning. If this occurs again, my suggestion would be, first and foremost, this board and this district needs to go out and get not parent help, you need professional help. Professional help. Do not listen to the parents, I know that sounds crazy, but everybody's got a stake in this one way or the other. You need somebody that's going to come in and be unbiased. On that note, what occurred last week or last meeting unfortunately has occurred before, which brings me to my other topic. I understand that this is a difficult job, being on the board. However, telling the public to shut up is completely unreasonable. And I think that if this board plans to move forward and support this community, I think it would be in the best interest if President Black stepped down as president, took his place as a board member, and have another board member come in. I don't stand up here and relish saying this, not at all. But I think for the community to move forward, I think that we need somebody with a little bit better temperament in those situations. And I hope you take that under consideration. Thank you.
Jacob.
Yeah, so am I allowed to respond to that?
No, it's matters not on the agenda. You really.
All right, well, I'll give you a call later on, Brian, because as far as the board making mistakes, I wasn't involved in any of the decisions.
Next. Anyone want to talk about anything other than paraeducator pay? Okay.
Have a sort of procedural comment. I have no problem in having the discussion now, but because we actually passed an agenda, enacted an agenda, I would say we should be prepared to hold it reopen a hearing at the end of the, if, I
At
have
the appropriate
problems-
time.
Yeah, I have problems with, if anyone's watching this on TV and says, well, they've approved an agenda, and I now know the CSEA is going to happen around 8:30 or 9. So let's be
Right.
flexible. If someone says, hey, I'd like to speak to, we may need to reopen any hearing.
Okay, well, fine. So for now, we're going to open the public hearing. Negotiation proposal association, and this is a public hearing, so this would be the appropriate time to talk about paraeducator pay. So, who wants to talk next?
Good evening, President Black and Superintendent Williams and the rest of the board and the membership. We have a great group of employees here who are here because we have a history of working collaboratively with the superintendent and all the district administrators to try and get just results for our salaries, benefits, and based on our dedication to the students and the community of Albany. But we're here because we really feel like we need to go beyond that at this point and ask you to work with us. We don't consider you necessarily the problem, but that we need, as a state, to come together and do something about putting more money into education so that people like the paraprofessionals, the clerical people, and others in our bargaining unit don't feel like they have to make choices between being able to pay their rent and other essential things for them to exist in this community. There's a cost of living index that was developed by a professor at MIT, and you can put in your geographic area and some basic information, and it tells you what it would take for someone to be able to have a living wage in our area. And it's based on whether it's an individual or someone with a child or families. For a person to work and have one child and support themselves, they need to earn $33 an hour in order to be considered to have a living wage. When we look at the wages for our bargaining unit, they are below the average for this area, but also below the average for the state. What compounds it is that most of the people in our unit are not full-time, and so anything they get towards benefits are prorated if they're even eligible, and they're not able to afford their portion of the benefits, so many people don't take it. So you've heard people talk about needing to make additional income in multiple jobs. But we're here because we want to model for our students and our own families what it's like for people to come together and say it's not okay for California and for the Bay Area to have such low funding levels that we can't have people earn a decent wage, a living wage in this area. And so we're going to come, and we're very committed to needing a living wage to be paid to everybody in this district, but we want to work with you in order to achieve that. We know that you've made different commitments about being able to do things like that, but when we see driving in this area, there are different tents that are out under freeways and stuff. It no longer seems like, oh, that's far away from me. It feels like, by the grace of God, that could be me. And we need to have the respect and the same kind of dedication for us in order to make a living wage. And so we're going into these negotiations serious, but with good intent, and we hope that we'll be able to reach something and come up with additional plans in order to create a better environment.
Thank you. Thank you. Who else would like to speak?
Hello, my name is Marguerite Buckbauer. I'm a teacher at Albany High School, and I want to say how strongly I think our paras need a living wage. They don't just work the hours that they are assigned. I want to speak very highly of Erin, who she's our math person, and she works so hard with the resource kids. And she doesn't just work during her hours. She comes in, sometimes she has attended my classes. She does my students' homework. She comes in and asks questions about how I graded something on a test. She is so dedicated. She also, when we were learning, transitioning to Common Core and CPM, she attended some of our Saturday workshops. And we all were paid, the teachers who were there were paid our hourly wage, and she was paid her hourly wage. And she did what we did, and we learned it together. So anyways, pay them more, because I think they deserve it. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Olga Miranda. I am the parent of Joaquin Rubio and Jaden. I want to be able to speak also in favor. Since last June, as a parent, I've been here consecutively and for long hours at a lot of these school board meetings talking about the dignity that not just the children in special ed deserve, but also in ELD programs, and the workers that have been left behind, not just on wages, but on the way that they're being treated on the job has been incredible, and that affects how our children feel. And talk about transcending how one feels. If you don't feel respected on the job, it makes it that much more difficult. The level of absences that have been has to do for a reason. It's not fair that a worker who's working with a child with special needs is having to run to their next job in order to be able to make ends meet. And in some cases, some workers have taken on 2, 3 jobs that are gig jobs, and it doesn't make sense that somebody in Albany who works in Albany that considers itself middle to upper class as a community is leaving so many people behind. And for myself as a parent, I find that really embarrassing that the school board understand that, yes, this is a unit that has, for some godforsaken reason, allowed for this to have happened. And I find it to be criminal because I see how a lot of the paras engage. My son Joaquin and a lot of other children that have special needs have a hard time engaging and making that connection with someone. So when you do, as a parent, we're grateful that our child made a connection with that person that's trying to help them. And all I ask from the school board is that you not just, when you sit at these negotiations, that you think about the quality of life that Albany brags about, but that it does not leave anyone behind. Not our children, not the workers, not the teachers, not the paras, but the needs to make sure that you, when you're sitting at that bargaining table, that on your shoulders are all these families, all of these families, and that you want to be able to look at them in the eye and say, I was fair with you at the bargaining table. You know, that I was fair and I treated you with dignity. So I know that there's a lot of other parents right now that would have preferred coming to this meeting tonight, and a lot of them are still out there. I just ask that you understand the position that us as parents are being put in. When the parents can't make it because they got sick from their other job, that makes it so cruel for our child that's waiting for that para to be there on that day, or when somebody or 2 or 3 people are out absent. My kid's para gets pulled to go somewhere else, and my son doesn't get that help. And that's where, contractually, this district is in violation of those agreements of the IEPs and the 504s that you guys make commitments to. Those are called liabilities, legal liabilities that you owe, not just to myself as a family and my son, but to all the other families that are getting cheated every time one of the paras is out for other reasons and you don't have a plan in place to be able to protect them, but pay them what they deserve and dignity on the job. Thank you.
Stephen Ave, teacher at Marin School. I just wanted to add that I've had the great privilege and honor with working for paraprofessionals in these 15 years I've been in Albany. And here in Albany, we're very fortunate to have so many students that really can excel. And we're always looking for ways to get to those kids that are just not making it. And I have to say, paraprofessionals are the way that happens. I mean, when I see the relationships they make with these kids who could fall through the cracks, and even ones that don't, but that's the ones that I worry about the most. It's an amazing thing. And on the other flip side of that, my son got his first job at CVS as a cashier. He was making more than they are. And I saw that, and that was just horrific to me. And so I really want to say how important they are to our schools and our kids. So thank you.
So I personally, as a teacher at the high school, echo what I've heard out here, and I've had a lot of experience with the paras over years, and they are so valuable to all of the gen ed teachers. But I'm also here with Stephen as leadership of ATA to let you know we stand with our fellow union members in demanding this fair and decent wage. We know this demand presents a dilemma and considerable economic trade-offs for you. But if you meet these demands, you will be putting the students of AUSD first, which is the goal of all of us here, all the teachers and all of the support staff in this room. So we hope that you will consider that at negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak about para salaries? Okay, we're not going to vote on this right now. We're going to bring it up again later as suggested. So, Kim?
Of course, the The problem is we don't have enough money in California for education. So that's why we're in the situation that we're in. You know, I think that because you guys are here tonight, you're organized, you're deserving, and you know that the bottom line is the money. I just wanted to point out that there's a grassroots initiative that's taking place in California. If you Google schools and community first, you'll find that there's a ballot initiative that would increase school funding throughout the state. And I encourage everybody here to take a look at that, see if that's something that you can get behind. I know the board passed a resolution to endorse that measure, and I very much hope that through our efforts and through your efforts, and for everybody, for every parent in the state, for every grandparent, for everybody who understands that we're not giving our kids a fair shake, if they can help us change that and get the funding that we need to overhaul the public education system in the state. So, schools and community first, check it out.
Jacob?
Yeah, I want to thank all the speakers, and the first person who came up who was talking about how, I guess the employees in the unit are below the average for the state. That's kind of surprising considering it's such an expensive area. And I wish we could pay the $33 that she was saying, but that's just not going to happen. But I definitely want to have us move in the direction as far as compensating them more. And I'll ask you again, Val, about the the $15 wage increase for all employees that I've asked about. And I guess you still have to check with the lawyers if we can talk about it, or?
It's agendized for closed session, is it not?
Yes, this is agendized for closed session on May 22nd.
On May 22nd.
They're under negotiations.
So the board will talk about it, because we don't have to negotiate with the other folks, like I was saying before. The board can just decide that we want to make a statement, and we can start paying people $15 an hour, right?
Well, we're going to talk to the lawyer to find out what we can say.
Well, why do we have to talk to the lawyer to find out if we want to pay our workers $15 an hour? I'm serious.
I want to pay our workers as much as we can, but it's a negotiation. It's a negotiated item, so we can't do it unilaterally. It's got to be negotiated with the union, so we need to talk with our negotiators about it.
I brought that up before. We can unilaterally, without bargaining with them, give them a raise. I've never heard of anything so silly. I mean, we have to ask the lawyer, and then we have to bargain. And like I said a long time ago, are you guys going to say no if we want to raise your pay to $15 an hour? Save us the time with the closed session and the lawyers? I mean, I know you want more, and hopefully we can get up that way. But I mean,
So advice from legal counsel is that this be discussed in closed session.
right? And you know, a lot of times I don't agree with legal counsel, so I don't.
Ross?
Yeah, a couple of things. Kim did mention there's a voter initiative to change, basically to change how Prop 13 treats commercial properties. Unfortunately, it sounds like the organizers of that are planning to put it on the 2020 ballot, so you won't see it come fall. Secondly, to respond to something that Olga mentioned about when we're at the negotiation table, the board doesn't go to the negotiation table. The board directs, the board approves, et cetera. The negotiation is handled by the administration. So we will be seeing, and very intermittently, we see it, say, when we have board meetings every 2 weeks, we'll get an update on, or the board will be asked, where do we think, are we comfortable with, et cetera. We're not the direct negotiators. We absolutely approve things. We absolutely set a mark. We say, yeah, we couldn't go above that or below that or something. But we really aren't the people doing the day-to-day negotiation. That would be the administration and your representatives of your unit. That said, all of us here on the board would be willing to to hear from y'all. I yet again will say, you want to email me or call me about your concerns, I'm absolutely open to hear it. And we, the board, do weigh in on things. We give guidance to the administration. We are the ones that will have to approve any contracts or whatnot, but we're not actually in the room for the negotiation. And then lastly, to go from state, and yes, it's appalling that we as a state devote so little of our public monies. We devote more than half of our public monies to education. We don't raise enough money we don't tax enough to pay out for the educators we need. Locally, we have a parcel tax. Measure LL will expire. I think it's expiring when, 2020, 21? We will absolutely either see $1.5 million additional cut in revenues to the district, or we'll pass a new parcel tax. The time to think about a new parcel tax is now. I don't know when it'll exactly need to go on the ballot to replace LL. We could pass a parcel tax as soon as we get our act together and convince the community to do so, to raise revenues. I think we will have to look at parcel taxes, at least, say, continuing what we now have. And the time to have that discussion is also now. Send emails, et cetera. So we're talking $1.5 million is a huge cut. That's not vals raised. That's a half dozen vals and then some raised. So we're talking real monies that also need to be addressed, and the parcel tax will be a huge thing. Someone will have to lead that effort. The last one was a very grassroots thing, and I imagine the people that did that are feeling very burnt out on it. For folks who would really like to get behind it, this is a great opportunity, and we need to start talking about that as well.
Thanks.
Act like you were elected. Act like you're doing your job. So that every family knows that you guys are elected. You guys are elected. Take that responsibility more seriously. For all of everybody's family, and my sake, my family as well. Take your role more seriously. Be a part of those negotiations if you have to. Don't just set the bar and push it onto somebody else.
Well, Olga, that's not how, say, the law of the state of California or Ed Code works. There are the rules. We're elected, and our role as an elected official is oversight and management. We are a very part-time body, and we have a superintendent, and her administration negotiates with the unions. It is how the business of the state and this community gets done. We can't, as a board, fix the state budget. We can absolutely raise things like our local budget and parcel taxes. I will absolutely go into our board meetings with the superintendent and her negotiator and say, here's what I think is fair. That's the role of the board, and I think we all take it very seriously.
Were you waiting to speak?
My name is Morgan Cannon. I'm a resource paraeducator in the special ed department at Albany High School, and I wanted to pass around a petition that we have collected 600 signatures for as a bit of the demonstration of the urgency of this problem. It's not on a parcel tax timeline. It's really right now that Albany has created a number of precarious in our bargaining unit, most people are in this level of precarity that the district has created by having such low wages. I personally bring home, my take-home pay is around $1,500 a month. And I'm working the full 30 hours that I'm allowed to work, and I've been here for about 1.5 years. So I'm definitely dwindling my savings in order to get the kinds of experience that I can in this job, because it actually requires a ton of different kinds of skills. It's not a basic, easy job. It's not something that you can just disregard. So really where we are at in these precarious wages is demanding just those break-even wages just those living wages. And to put it off any longer is really just going to result in greater instability in the workforce that your district has and all the students have. I think this is best demonstrated not by my story, but by a story that I've been given permission to tell from one of my coworkers who's been a paraeducator at the high school for many years and whose own daughter graduated from Albany High recently. With that educational foundation, her daughter, unfortunately, will have to not focus on her studies any further because she needs to help pay for the household costs because my coworker has to just choose between rent and food. Val knows this. She had meetings with all of us at every campus. She's doing her job, and what we're needing is that clear direction from you that it's not okay anymore to pay us this low wage. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the record, I'll just read the petition here. It says, "We, the employees of the Albany Unified School District and the Albany community, support the office paraeducator bargaining unit goal to achieve a living wage that enables us to support our families and fulfill the needs of our students. Salaries need to be raised to address the out-of-control cost of living in this area and the ability of employees to continue to work in the school district and meet basic needs such as housing, food, childcare, medical costs, and transportation." Thank you for that. Okay, before we move on, is there anyone else who wants to get the last word in? Okay, thank you. We moved up the No, because we're going to leave it open because we're going to come back to it later. We'll temporarily close the public hearing. We're not going to vote on it right now. So we have a job description, product development assistant, that we moved up so that Clell could get out of here in time to get up early tomorrow morning.
Yes, thank you, President Black and trustees. And this was, we were asked to bring this back. There are some questions around the job description for product development assistant, and I'm glad that Clell is back with us, and he is here to answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay, so people had questions last time, and Clell wasn't here to answer them. So if you still have those questions, now is the time. This is, let's see, it's on page 150 of the board pack.
Can I address the board before you ask questions? Because I saw the concerns, or I heard about the questions you may have had, and so in thinking about that, so this position was done in response to some things were happening prior to this survey, and then when the survey came along, we started getting information, seeing what was needed to increase participation. We created this, and I don't see this as being something that we're going to post as a new position, but as a reclassification for an employee, because we have someone who's doing some of these duties, not all these duties, but in talking to the union, you know, people working on a classification, we want to make sure that they're working within their job description and what their level of pay is and their expectations are. So this is not going to be a new position that's going to either not be backfilled or whatnot. It's going to be something that's perhaps going to be a couple dollars an hour more for that employee that gets reclassified. So it's not going to be the $69,000 that was put on there as this position goes. And as far as, I think Jacob had a question about taste testing, and are we doing that now? We do that in the sense that we create new items, and then we give them to the students, and then we get some feedback here or there, but it's really not a good systematic way to find out what the kids really want. And we need to go to, especially the elementaries, because it's easier to get information from high school, middle school kids. I can walk them out on the campus and really talk to them. But the elementary schools, I've gotten feedback from parents about what the kids like and don't like, and I really want to delve into that grade level and go to the sites, have them taste foods, let us know what they want. Maybe I can change the pizza for the 9th time in 11 years if they find one they like. So, and since this is a reclassification, it's going to be a savings compared to what the other position was. And by having this position, it's going to improve the quality of service, the quality of the food, and will help us increase revenue and work towards operating in the black. So this is why I'm wanting to do this. As far as the floating sub part of it goes, we do have someone that is a floating sub. This week she's worked for 3 people. Last week she worked for 4 people. If I can fill a position coming up that we had open that didn't get filled because someone left, I will have a full staff for the first time in 4 years. So my staff, that's a really crucial part to have that there. I have people from the district office coming to work for me. Alan's worked for me. Cynthia's worked for me. I've had Marina, Doris, Trudy, Aaliyah, everybody has worked for me. I've had 4 people from the district office in one day. I've worked at 5 sites in one day, and I should have gotten many speeding tickets, but I made it to each site on time. So staffing is an issue, and having this person be the support person that we need, their expertise is unsurpassed in the sense that they know how to do every single person's job on my staff. And that's not from Cafe 1, which is the lowest classification, to the managers. There's nuances at each school site. So this, this position is crucial for my department. So.
Thanks. Do we have more questions?
Yeah, thank you for your clarification, Clell. When you look at big numbers up there, 65,000 or whatever, when we're unclear if it's a new position or not, it would have been nicer whoever put the report together, because basically from what I'm hearing now is we're basically just giving somebody a couple $1 an hour raise, which I'm cool with.
Yeah, well, I think that it was going to be floated internally initially, and in talking more to the union and to HR and whatnot, we talked about who's doing those jobs and what's fair in those regards, and we decided that. So I don't think that was necessarily decided, and there was no, there wasn't. I don't think anyone left that on purpose or didn't. They knew that and just slipped their mind.
I didn't say it was on purpose. I'm just saying
I understand.
time that's being
Yeah, I get it.
put into this, when I look at it and it's like, oh, another position, and I'm asking for a hiring freeze, and then now when I hear from you, it's different.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it has changed since then, or what you're saying now was what was originally was meant to be said, but it would be nice to have just had it said that way at the beginning.
I wish I could have been here. I was out with illness for a week when that happened.
Right.
And all your concerns and the community's concerns about an additional $69,000 to my department is very valid and should be looked at seriously. So I was not offended, or I thought, we just need to clarify and make sure that it's clear to everyone what's going on with this position, how it's going to affect my department financially. So
tonight we're approving the job description, right?
Yeah, you're approving the job description.
That's right. Any other questions?
As it's new.
So, Clell, it seems like that the food service, it is a separate budget. It's not part of the general fund, but it seems like that you're dipping slightly into the red, very slightly, but it seems like you believe that through this process, you'll be able to grow the number of meals served and make the dining account move more solidly into the black. Is that the case?
Yeah, because as the graph showed on my first slide on my presentation before with the survey presentation, participation is going down, but yet our revenue is going up. But the revenue needs to go up even at a greater rate because PERS, as you all know, is going to increase significantly. And that's going to be completely out of my control. And that's going to affect the district. And they don't, food services needs to take care of that on its own, and I'm going to do my best to do that. So, again, I treat this like a business, and when you have a business and you're not being successful, sometimes you have to spend money to make money. When I started here, we were $100,000 in the red my first year. And the first thing I did was increase labor. And the second year we were 50, the third year we were 25, the next year we were even, and then we started making money and I had a surplus of $200,000. And I've done nothing but increase labor since then. I mean, there's been years that have been more than others, but to be able to go from not serving hard, we don't serve anything packaged here. And so we could decrease labor and start serving packaged burritos and Hot Pocket type things and things of that nature. But this community demands a higher quality food, as they should. And even if we did that, so we decrease labor and then we have a lower quality of food and then participation goes down. And so it just kind of goes like this anyways. So in meeting the needs of the community and what the kids deserve, I want to maintain the high level that we've already achieved and try to stay solvent and in the black and not encroach on the general fund.
Thank you. Yeah.
Anyone else? Anyone from the audience?
Oh.
I just want to know, did you watch the video, the last meeting before this, and are you going to answer any of the questions and or concerns that I had specifically?
Could you refresh my memory on the questions?
So I have 2 elementary school children at Marin. The lines are long. Your presentation only talks about the high school, so you sent a survey with a contractor for about 10,000 and you only got feedback from the high school, which maybe was in the scope, but there's still problems at the elementary school. Just because, also this is my personal opinion, just because something's packaged doesn't mean that it has to be low quality. It's just an item that actually doesn't have to be thrown away. So I just think that clearly, I'm not trying to roast you again, but if you didn't watch the video, I said a lot in there, and I've talked to you on the phone about things that need to really be stepped up at the elementary school levels. Those lines, the type of food that's being served, day-old food that the kids don't eat because they clearly know that it tastes awful. So, what are you doing for that? Because as a parent who's paying $4 for my kid to, eat lunch, and there's a certain calorie count a day, but if they don't drink the milk or they don't eat one of the items from the salad bar, they're not getting the full calorie count. So that's the issue.
So first of all, I don't believe you're roasting me, and I really appreciate you coming up here and voicing your concerns. I've always told people that constructive criticism and feedback like this is how we're going to make a program better, so I don't want you to think I've taken any offense to anything you've said. So as far as the calorie count goes and things of that nature, there are federal and state regulations that we have to follow, and I wish there was more money for nutrition education in terms of the kids making choices to want to eat fruits and vegetables more and making those choices on their own as opposed to us trying to force those things on them. But there's financial constraints as well to be giving them double portions of entrees. So, we want to make sure kids get enough food, but at the same time, we have to follow regulations and we're within a budget. As far as the lines go, it's definitely an issue that I'm going to be looking at the elementary sites as well. It's also, again, a catch-22. I've had people ask me to please stop serving, for instance, the nachos that we serve, which is our scoop of rice, scoop of beans, chips, and then they have stuff on the salad bar because it's the most popular day and the lines are so long. So if we're making the food better, more kids are going to eat, the lines are going to get longer. We need participation to support food services. So what do we, and that just is brainstorming with site staff, with teachers, with community members to try to figure out that problem because kids need enough time to eat. So again, that's a very valid concern. And as far as the kids not liking the food or day-old food, we We don't serve like day-old chicken nuggets. For one, those are really way too popular to have any left over. And again, through this new position that I'm having here, we're going to do more taste testing and more getting more feedback from the kids to find out what they like. You know, a lot of parents say we want more variety. At one point, I had 14 things in 22 days, and I would challenge anybody to tell me they have 14 things at their house in 22 days. And some of the kids just don't eat it. So we go with the greatest hits because that's what kids like and that's what they eat. But I would still, at the same time, want to represent what they like. I want to represent the ethnic diversity that we have here and try some different things from different cultures as well. And we need to do that systematically by going to the sites and getting kids' feedback. So does that address your concerns and questions?
Yes, I think that naturally, my personal opinion, because you're dealing with minors that, you know, of course, the parents, you know, some way, somehow need to be, you know, involved and know what's going on, especially if we're paying for the lunch. And I also said last time that, you know, French, you know, delicacies aren't, you know, probably going to be as popular, you know, at the elementary school level, but they don't have breakfast or, you know, any of the morning type foods. It's just only for lunch. So if that's the one meal that maybe a kid might be getting that whole day and the line, you know, is naturally long, then maybe they just don't eat because they don't have, you know, there's no snack bar or any of that at the elementary school. So
No, those, again, Desiree, those are all valid concerns. And again, we don't want to be serving foods that are foreign to the kids and are above their palate grade, I guess you might call it, in terms of French foods and things of that nature. So I always welcome parent input, and maybe there is a way that we can get parent input around things that they like to see. I've done this before, and I was suggested to serve bulgur wheat and lentils and lobster from some kids. So, you know, there's some kids that have certain things they'll eat at home, but at school, there's a lot of kids that don't necessarily will eat those things. So I've got to cook for the masses and then at the same time get food that's nutritious. And so, again, valid concerns, and I appreciate your input. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. We're actually off topic here because we're just supposed to be approving a job description. So maybe we could move on and get our vote on the job description. And anyone who wants to talk to Clell, I'm sure will be glad to talk to them.
I love phone calls and I love emails. Please do not hesitate to call me. If you call my office phone any time of the day, it rings my cell phone, so you'll be surprised that I'll pick my phone up at 6 in the evening. And if I do, it's because I know it's a parent or someone from the community, and so don't be alarmed when you hear me say food service when I'm sitting at my kitchen table. So.
Okay, thanks. Can we have a motion on this job description?
I move that we approve this job description.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Thanks, Clell.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is the promoting safe, supportive, and collaborative environments for all students and staff. Staff report.
Thank you, President Black. I'm going to turn this over to Carrie Neerheim, our Director of Student Services, who is going to give us our update on promoting safe, supportive, and collaborative environments for all students and staff. Ms. Neerheim.
Good evening, President Black, Board of Trustees. I just want to thank all the educators in the audience and all the parents who came tonight. I appreciate everything you do. Thank you. Tonight, I am talking about a project that our district leadership team started working on about a year ago, which are our social, emotional, and social justice competencies. Julie, do you mind bringing up the... Okay. So a lot of thought went into these. This is a template of a social emotional learning wheel that was worked on. This is the elementary wheel. There is also one for the secondary level. The middle school and the high school are taking it back to staff so that they can help craft the wording. The areas are self-management, self-awareness, skills to foster equity and inclusion, knowledge of social inequities, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. And on the elementary one, you can see that those terms have been put into kid-friendly language. So, for example, relationship skills, I am a good friend. And the elementary principals have taken these back to their staffs, and they will be deciding how they will implement these at each site based on site needs. Just to go over what was crafted, I apologize. May I read a paragraph that goes a bit deeper? Okay. Social and emotional learning and social justice competencies are foundational skills necessary for children and adults to connect across race, class, culture, ethnicity, language, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, differing abilities, faith and religion, learning needs, age, and all other identities represented among our diverse community. These competencies deepen our awareness, knowledge, social skills, and strengthen our relationships in our community. So while the wheel may seem simple, the thinking behind it has a lot of depth to try and support our students, our staffs in having conversations about how we want to treat one another and how to support one another. So these have gone back to the elementary schools, this wheel. There is a second wheel for the secondary levels that is being worked on for language. Each one of these areas has an equally deep list of bullets that pertain to them. So, for example, under self-awareness, the ability to identify one's own emotions, perceptions, thoughts, and values, and how they influence behavior. That's going to look very different at the kindergarten level than it would for an 11th grader. And so the thinking is there, and the staff will decide how best to interpret and implement it with each grade level. So this is the work that the district leadership team has been doing for about a year, and we're moving forward to get these on campuses. Thank you.
Thanks. Questions, comments? Yes.
My question is about the elementary wheel. What you put down as the kid-friendly language for self-awareness and self-management seem to be reversed, but maybe that's just my understanding of it.
Actually, I'd like to respond to that. Thank you very much, because I think having that feedback is going to help. I will be able to take it back to staff. I want to add a piece, because I know Ms. Nerheim wasn't here when we started this work. We didn't create these in a vacuum. Our leadership team did some research, and we looked at the Oakland Unified School District, who has been doing this work for quite a few years, but also Principal Burrell was able to connect us with an organization where we really looked at the social justice competencies. And so the paragraph that Carrie read was discussed, and then discussed some more, and then discussed some more. It took a good amount of time to come up with that language, because we wanted to be very specific and intentional. Coming up with when you saw, I think, the list that had the self-awareness and all the abilities, there were a myriad of abilities in various places that we did research, and we really honed this down, and it took an awful lot of discussion. And I mentioned that specifically because sometimes it's not just about creating the wheel, it's the courageous conversation, the discussion that we had in our leadership team meetings that went very, very deep. And so what secondary sites are looking at is how do they want the wheel to look at and incorporate some of these abilities in each of the sections. So the comment that you made, we'll take a look at that, because I think it's something that bears examining, do we need to flip it?
Thanks. Anything else?
I appreciate the work that's being done around this, and one thing I would like to point out is last year, there was several instances that we reported to the school that my son was being threatened to be deported. But also with that, in the elementary school level, what I would like to be able to ask is that not just the elementary, the middle, and the high school understand that sometimes when it comes to social awareness and knowledge of social inequities, there's a program within our middle school that, it fosters cleaning the school and the environment. And as someone who is on the side of unions and always work defending the workers. When my son's been asked to pick up trash around the school, the social awareness and the responsibilities we have is that children will say, well, you missed a spot and your people should know how to clean better, right? And these are the types of comments that are being made. And I raised this with the school and it was addressed. I want to thank, where's Deborah? Is she still here? Yes. So I have a problem with that's the only solution sometimes. And I believe that in order for our children to understand the social inequities and also the social responsibility we have as a community is that it's not just picking up the trash, it's also making sure. And I responded with like, please don't put my son on the trash gang anymore. I don't want my son to feel every time that he's had to be assigned to do that, that he's always being given these comments or feedback from classmates, making fun of him and other classmates that are doing the same thing over how they should pick up here and pick up there. But it crosses a line when my son hears, and other children of color at the middle school here, you missed a spot, you didn't clean it and your people know how to clean, should know how to do better. That's where I have a problem as a parent. And I think I really appreciate that this program is starting at the elementary school level because it allows for us to be able to foster a better social responsible community. But it also is looking at and assessing whether the programs we've implemented over several years, are they really working? Are they really giving us something that our children can walk away and know not to do that again, perhaps? And not just for the kids that are picking up the trash, but the kids that are also making these comments, because my son, to this day, still won't tell me who has made those comments to him repeatedly and repeatedly again. So I would just ask that conversation also take place in this. Thank you.
And I do want to clarify, this is actually being started at the Albany Children's Center. It's not just at the elementary schools. ACC is using these as well.
So I just want to piggyback a little bit on Olga, Miss Miranda, and what she said, because this is coming up, I think, a little bit later, but it still ties into this, and since she mentioned it, and plus my kids are getting tired. There's a behavioral matrix for the middle school, and trash duty is on there. I made a personal note about that before, but I think that needs to be changed. I think the whole connotation about it, I don't see what good that title has. Maybe it could just be like office work or, just something else besides that. So again, because there's a connotation along with that, and it just really could be a catalyst for bullying to begin, no matter actually what the original punishment was. I think it's underneath if you buy and or sell some type of, whatever property or something like that. And quite honestly, a lot of people turn trash into treasure, so I didn't even think that was the appropriate punishment, really, to be honest. But yeah, so little things like that, I don't know how long it's been on there, but I think that should change.
I just wanted to clarify, the problem I had, besides the comments that were made to my son, is that this is a work that's done with a lot of dignity. Every custodian at the high school, at the middle school, at the elementary schools, it's a job with dignity. They're providing for their families. So when you kind of try and put the kids in, like, do the trash, and let's try and other classmates who are not necessarily socially responsible are making these comments, it's kind of to humiliate them about you'll end up doing this as a career. And there's dignity on that job. I represent janitors in the private sector as well as the public. So I don't want for my son to ever think that that's an embarrassing job. His grandfather was a janitor in Los Angeles. So I just want to make sure that there's some responsibility behind how all these programs of discipline are being used, because it's still a job that somebody is providing for and for their families with dignity. It's a union job. So.
A comment to sort of piggyback on that, and then to sort of my impression of the wheel. Actually, another objection to trash duty is to suggest that it isn't everybody's duty. I mean, if anyone throws trash on the ground, we've failed to teach them you don't do that. So I think there's good reasons not to sort of stigmatize policing your own trash or dealing with trash as a necessary community thing. A reaction I had to this was to look at social awareness and think of the problems people have had with the golden rule of, do unto others as you'd like done unto you. It's missing the issue of empathy. If I'm aware of you, I can be aware of you because, well, I wouldn't want that done to me too, but more important than that is for me to understand how you feel. So it's not just I care about others, but I can anticipate or I can understand how others may feel and why my actions have a consequence to them. So I don't know if you change social awareness to social empathy or go beyond awareness to say, well, I'm aware of your pain because I can anticipate it even though it's not mine, even though it's not my experience. Why I'm aware is because I can understand, I can get inside your head and understand, yeah, that hurts.
Is there anything else? Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, and thank you for the comments. I appreciate it. I'll take it back. Thank you.
Okay, we have a staff report, a special education update.
Thank you. I'm going to turn this over to our Director of Special Education, Diane Marie, who will be giving us our update.
Good evening. I have a brief update on some of the things, the progress we've made on some of the things that we said we were going to do. The first is a special education handbook for paraeducators, and we have met. We have a draft. I'm either sent or I'm sending it to the actual committee who met to review it. And then we're meeting to do any revisions to that, I believe, on May 23rd. And then it will go out to the paraeducators. Then it will be reviewed by the teachers. And it's a comprehensive but not extensive handbook. It'll be reviewed every 2 years. We're going to add some bells and whistles, so to speak. We'd like to have an online version with links in it. But right now we have a basic version that will be given to the existing paras, new paras when they're hired, and they'll be available at each of the sites as a reference. We are putting in place, beginning next school year, of 0.5 or a half a teacher to do initial assessments at the elementary level. And that's done with existing staff. It was an unfilled position from this year from someone who had a work reduction. And we've filled that position because the person has since resigned and retired, actually. We've added 2.5 hours per day at the middle school and 2.5 hours per day at the high school of clerk time to assist with scheduling IEP meetings and with reassigning paras in the morning if paras call out and they need to reassign. The elementary teachers did not want a clerk, so what we did for the remainder of this school only, and it was starting in April, is the teachers were allowed to take one day, get a sub 1 day a month so that they could catch up on assessment report writing, assessing students, and other duties that they felt that a clerk couldn't do for them. The salary and benefits, as we heard tonight, will be discussed in negotiations. Professional development and orientation, we will add, there is an orientation now that's done by HR, and there's a small section that has to do with special education, and we're going to expand that for the paraeducators and have an initial training for each staff as they're hired on. Also, we're going to be offering professional development on all 3 of the teacher professional development days, and that would be the day before paras come back, then the professional development day both in the fall and the spring, and approximately 2 Wednesdays a week. This feels like it's been 2 Wednesdays this week already. 2 Wednesdays a month we will be having professional development opportunities. And we've had some teachers give us topics that they would like to present on. We've had school psychologists, behaviorists, assistive technology, and things that match what the paraprofessionals have asked for when asked what they would like professional development on. Recruitment and coverage continue to be a challenge. We interview as we get applications. We did bring on 1 paraeducator sub who I believe has worked every day since she became available and is doing a great job. And we have one of the challenges, we have 5 paraeducators on leaves for one reason or another, and that impacts the subs that we have on our list. And that is my quick update.
Thanks. Questions from the board? Questions, comments from the audience?
May I make a comment?
Yes.
I really want to give a shout out to Berkeley City College, Dr. Loretta Kane's class. 2 of our folks who were hired as paraeducator and paraeducator subs came directly from the program at Berkeley City College. And I really enjoy every year going and recruiting. I think I do it twice a year for Dr. Kane's class. And so I had a chance on my site visit last week to actually run into both of those paras and to ask how they were doing. And they said they really enjoyed being here. So I really want to give a shout out to Dr. Kane and her class at Berkeley City College, because I think we're able to do some recruiting of paraprofessionals.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a staff report, elementary temporary student housing.
Thank you, President Black. Actually, this is my item. What I wanted to do was to provide the board and the public information on the proposed plan for temporary student housing. And our district leadership team and I worked quite a bit on this, and principals were able to take the plan back to their staff to get feedback. So in coming up with this plan for when we are building our elementary schools, where are we going to have our students have their temporary schools, or a temporary housing, I'll call it. And so some of the things that we looked at was, can we keep our students here in Albany? That was a priority. We want to make sure that we had the least amount of disruption to all of our students in the elementary schools. We did not want to spend bond dollars on leasing space for a temporary school that would not be in Albany. We did not want to spend district funds on transportation costs for students if we could keep them in Albany. And we also wanted our students to have closer access to current after-school programs if students did stay in Albany. So the plan is for our transitional kindergarten, that we would need to go to an AM/PM schedule for all 3 elementary sites and at the Albany Children's Center. The transitional kindergarten students would go to ACC, and our Ocean View kindergarten students, as you remember, the board agreed that Ocean View would be our first school, elementary school constructed. So the Ocean View kindergarten students would go to Cornell and Marin. Grades 1 and 3 would go to the new Albany Middle School Annex. Grades 4 through 5 would go to the new AHS wing. This does not displace any of our current Marin or Cornell students. They would stay at their sites. It would be the Ocean View students who would be moving when Ocean View was being constructed. Excuse me. question was raised about furniture. What do we do with furniture since we are building the the Albany Middle School Annex and the high school wing? What we're going to need to do is work with staff on what furniture can be purchased that would work for various grade levels. But it might be that we have to postpone the actual purchasing of the furniture until both of the elementary schools are built and the Albany Middle School Annex and the high school wing are then open for our middle school and high school kids. So I wanted to get this out pretty early to everybody so that the public could see this. But I wanted to reassure people that we really wanted to move as few kids as possible. Thank you.
Thanks. Questions? Jacob?
Just real quick, Val, so this also is going to be discussed next week, right?
No, on the 15th. No, the 15th is a special board meeting for the board to discuss the actual rebuild or renovation of the schools, not the temporary housing plan.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Good evening. I have 3 questions. The first question is, when will the AM/PM bell schedule be presented? And then the third question is, what is the actual calendar year this Ocean View construction will be happening? And then how long do you project this construction project to take?
Thank you. Excellent questions, and hopefully I'll be able to give you some pretty succinct answers. So in the answer to the what would be the actual AM/PM schedule, I think you were asking,
Yeah.
I'm going to have to work on that with staff because I was not here when the original AM/PM schedule was in effect. However, we have a lot of staff members who were here, and I'm pretty confident that they will be able to tell me what that AM/PM schedule looked like. So I'll be working with staff on that.
So it's not the same as the early bird late schedule that they have?
It is not the same.
Okay.
The second question was would the calendar year change? No.
No, I was asking what calendar year is this Ocean View construction going to start? Is it this 2018 to 2019 school year?
No, that is not the 18-19 school year. It would be once the board decides on what actually would go forward, then we would have to create the actual timeline. So it may not be until after the Albany Middle School Annex is completed, which is scheduled to be completed in January of 2019, and the high school wing, which is not scheduled to be completed until July of 2019. So we would be looking at the very, very earliest, the 19, 20, even 2021 school year.
So 19,
possibly.
20?
And I'm not going to guarantee that that's the year. It really depends on the planning and DSA approval, all those things.
We anticipate, what, a 2-year?
About a 2 year.
2 years.
2-year construction period?
That is correct.
Okay. And the busing, will the school system pay for the busing of the children from the Albany Middle School and High School to the after-school sites? Because you said that there won't be any dollars spent on that busing, or are you going to have after-school for them at those sites?
So there will be no busing. We don't have busing for that. We would have to work out with our current after-school enrichment programs to create a plan on how this would work. The good news is we do have some time to do that planning.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Charlie?
So maybe I can help on the AM/PM because my kids were in kindergarten and we still had AM/PM kindergarten then. It wouldn't necessarily be the same, but the way it used to be was AM kindergarten was 8 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. and PM kindergarten, I believe, was noon until 3:30. Is that right?
I think it was 8:10 to 11:30.
That's right.
11:50 to 3:10.
Yeah. Thank you.
I knew there were people here who had done it who knew it.
Great, thank you.
So,
Charlie.
Just a couple other questions or comments. First, thank you very much, and thank you to staff for really working on this, because this has been a Gordian knot trying to think through how we're going to do this. We haven't been able to move forward on the building projects themselves because we haven't had clarity on what we're going to do to house the students. This is a big step, and I think it moves us forward, and it it does it in a good way. I appreciate keeping the students in Albany somewhere close, and I know we'll find a way to take care of the after-school programs. And one thing you didn't mention, but I think it needs to be highlighted, is that this plan just saved the construction budget $4 million. And so I think that's really important. What we had in the construction budget before was $2 million for temporary housing for Ocean View and $2 million for temporary housing for Marin. If we don't have to do that, then the money can go into construction. So thank you to staff.
And as we get closer to this, we will make sure that we communicate it with the public, and we'll have a place on our website where people can go to look at temporary housing and some of our updates.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this? Okay, that brings us to our first review and action item, which is the Albany High School Behavior Matrix.
Thank you, President Black. Before I turn this over to Carrie Neerheim, really want to state that the purpose of this is a review and action item, and this is to have the board to review and then actually approve the Albany High School Behavior Matrix. And I'm going to turn this over to Carrie Neerheim, our Director of Student Services.
Good evening again. I'm excited that they are here tonight to share with you the rigorous work that they have been doing on a new matrix that moves from an emphasis on consequences to increased supports for accountability, ownership, social, emotional, and social justice competencies. And it's my pleasure to turn it over to Alexia and to Larry. Thank you.
Thank you for your time this evening and for allowing us to share with you the process that we've taken to revise and update our behavior matrix. Just a quick recap of the timeline from this year when myself and Mr. Pratt and Ms. Reimler and Mr. McNally were given the directive to revise the discipline grid to the new behavior matrix. We immediately turned to the great work at Albany Middle School and the behavior matrix that was in place and formulated by their staff. We liked it. We needed to adjust it up to high school and for secondary issues, and that's what we've been doing continually this year. As we have gone through infractions, real time, we've been able to adjust. And what you saw earlier was the close to final draft. Given your feedback, I made a few adjustments, and if you had some questions about that, we can certainly make sure that you get those adjustments. Again, they were based on your feedback. The behavior matrix really uses a system which combines the discipline grid, educational code, code of conduct, parameters that we need to use for all public schools. But what we've done is we've been able to incorporate many social emotional, many social justice, many restorative conversations and competencies, which you'll see in this slide. The bullets in black would be a traditional language that you would find in a discipline grid for an infraction. We chose this one, which is harassment and bullying. Again, the black dots you would see in the previous discipline grid. The red ones indicate where we've been able to enhance and inject, again, conflict resolution, restorative justice, social emotional competencies, reflection pieces, competencies that you wouldn't necessarily see in a traditional discipline grid. We've been able to use those and enhance those. The next steps that we took for this year as well as going forward, we do need to introduce and update the stakeholders on the matrix expectations. This includes staff, it includes families, it includes students. We plan on doing this in earnest at our freshman orientation, during advisories, ongoing interactions with students. In fact, Assistant Principal Larry Pratt will give you some statistics later on that do indicate that some of our initiatives are being met with success.
success. Our overall goal is to increase student engagement in school and to guide these positive behavior choices with all students. Again, we do have some stakeholder communication objectives. We'd like to start this immediately. We're looking at small and large group inquiry sessions with our staff. We have staff who are in earnest trying to support, but at the same time have a lot of questions. And so it's our duty to make sure that we have space to address those questions, concerns, and suggestions. Professional development, Ms. Nierheim mentioned earlier about the social, emotional, and social justice competencies. That's district-wide. That will certainly help embolden our behavior matrix, as well as to collect and analyze feedback from staff and from data points. Again, we'll be able to share some of that with you a little bit later.
Okay, just to share some of the data that we've compiled. I want to just remind everyone that the overall goal for this is to increase academic engagement among students, and so we are trying our best to keep students at school rather than sending them home, with the hope that we're reducing the long-term negative impacts on their education. So we can see that we've seen a large reduction in out-of-school suspensions. Our in-school suspensions have also decreased. However, if we look at year to year and we break down the data, well, from last year to this year, what we see is that we've moved more toward the in-school suspensions, but again, we would like to try to keep students in the classroom as much as possible. Our total actions by violation, again, have decreased significantly, and we attribute this to the relationship building, the conversations, the counseling, really digging into each infraction or each situation, really getting a sense of what is happening and get into the root of the issues. We recognize that it is a little more time intensive, but we think that the value comes on the back end with students remaining academically engaged. Any questions?
Vin.
Absolutely. So on one of your first slides, I think it was the example of the harassment and bullying slide. Could you switch that slide real quick? Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that slide. So I noticed that for most of the incident levels, it says conflict resolution or assertive circle. In terms of harassment or bullying, if the, I guess, victim in the situation doesn't want to, participate in this, what other methods would you kind of use in lieu of that?
So this is definitely a menu, and the options include buy-in and approval from all stakeholders. And so you'll see going down the line, if we choose not to engage in a conflict resolution, we certainly have many other options, but some of those resolution conversations could happen one-on-one. It doesn't necessarily have to be with everybody in the same room, but conflict resolution can happen when you have a conduit who has relationship building skills to at least have voices heard and respected, even if they're not in the same room. But we also have many follow-up activities that we could entertain.
All right, thank you.
Charlie?
Yeah, so again, thank you for your work on this. I wanted to start by saying I support what you've done here. I think you have reflected ed code and board policy properly, both of which call for suspension and expulsion as options of last resort. And you've put a good emphasis on positive behavior and redirecting behavior. So I think those are all good directions to go. And I just wanted to start by saying I support that.
Thank you.
I wanted to press you on 2 points. One is, well, actually, if we just look at this one, harassment and bullying, expulsion is not even there as an option or as an option, which is an interesting, it's interesting in light of the past year. If you look at some of the others, threats, for example, expulsion is possible at the 3rd level. And again, I want to support you in that. But I'm pressing you a little bit because I think there could be concerns expressed about some of that. We've certainly heard them here. So that's one point, is just, I think I'm just asking you to make sure you're comfortable with where you've come down on each of those categories. And the second point I wanted to press you on just a little bit was, we have first, second, third incident levels, which are clearly defined when it comes to first occasion, second occasion, third occasion. There's more ambiguity when you talk about first level, second level, third level. And I think there can be legitimate questions asked about whether something is a minor, a moderate, or a severe incident. Severity is sometimes in the eyes of the participants, and we don't always all judge it the same. So I guess I wanted to ask if you're really comfortable, if you feel that you'll be able to defend your decisions, because actually we've been asked to do that for the past year. We've been pressed on that pretty hard. And so when it comes to something like this, let's say it's the first occasion in which a student comes in and you make the decision that this is a severe incident, it's the third level. Do you feel confident that you can support that decision, that you can defend that decision, especially since when we're talking about students, much of what we have to talk about is confidential? So those are the 2 points I wanted to press you on. It doesn't really need a response. I just want to ensure that you're comfortable with where you've come out with this.
I think I'm comfortable with the process that we would take to determine what the consequence or what the reaction should be based on, again, a process that's grounded in social justice, social emotional, restorative practices, rather than moving strictly to the consequence phase of a particular infraction. So we're confident with the process. We can't always tell what the outcome will be.
Fair enough.
Let me add on. The process includes a lot of processing itself.
Can you talk into the mic?
Sorry. The process includes a lot of processing in itself. So there's a lot of dialogue that occurs to really get a sense of where we are from the first second. We take into account all parties that were involved. And so we get a lot of information. So we don't rush to a decision, and we do prioritize student safety, physical and psychological.
So in some sense, though, you'll actually be able to establish a record through a record of the process that has occurred. You don't have to divulge confidential information, but you will be able to point to a record, a process record.
Contact record, yes.
Thanks. Ross?
I was puzzled by a number of these specific categories of infractions, and some just seem nonsensical. So like electronic devices, I can understand, the policy should on its face be clear. It shouldn't be, we know what this means at Albany High, really. And saying, no cell phones or Bluetooth speakers. Lots of kids have cell phones and Bluetooth speakers. I understand if you're saying, if a teacher doesn't want you having the phone out in the class, you don't have the phone out in the class. If you take the phone out in the class, we'll take the phone. I understand that. That's not what this policy says. This policy says no phones. So saying something like at teacher discretion or administrator discretion or per school policies, phones should only be used as appropriate, that'd be great. Selling, buying, or trading items is a hugely overbroad thing. If I'm at in the cafeteria and I swap Charlie my tuna sandwich for his PB&J, are we in violation of school policy? Apparently so, because we're trading things.
Plus a quarter.
Well, and I leave aside the whole peanut butter issue. So there's some things in there that, and then video recording a fight. If my kid's beaten up at school, I would thank anybody who got video of that and turned it into the principal. So if our problem is kids are taking pictures of fights and either egging on the participants or exacerbating it by posting it to social media, big problem. Let's address it. Not Janie sees a fight going on, hauls out the camera, gets the footage that APD is delighted to have when they prosecute somebody for battery. I'd like some clarification of these so that when we read it, we say, oh, I know what they mean, because it says it there, not I know what we mean because we all know that that means no photographing this, but yes, you can photograph that. I think we'd probably run afoul of the First Amendment law on things like videotaping things. I'm not a fan of current law that says, you know, we're a one-party state. If I haul out my phone and surreptitiously record you talking about how you're going to beat me up if I tell about something, I'm actually committing a crime. The courts would look at that and say, well, his minor crime of doing that is sort of overridden by the justice he brought to the situation. But that's the law in California, but there's nothing in the law that says I can't haul out my phone and take pictures of some violent action going on. And I hate to ban it by policy when what we really want to do is constrain things like using your phone as a tool of abuse. And there's, you know, there's law to stop kids from, say, videotaping in a locker room. So I'd love to have the matrix become a little more clear on some things that we really mean as opposed to things we're saying.
Based on your feedback, we've already made those adjustments. What we also need to remember is we need the flexibility to interpret student behavior based on the circumstances of a particular incident. And the 3 incidents that you referred to are all grounded in behaviors that resulted in some very negative consequences. And so what we did was we made it liberal enough so that we could apply them to different situations. We did add some of the specific language that you requested.
Yeah, we had a policy committee meeting where we talked about the Morgan Hill case. So in the case of Morgan Hill, students were wearing what some deemed to be offensive T-shirts, and this went all the way up to the Supreme Court, which held that the student or the school had the right to ban certain T-shirts. Right? It wasn't, you know, I support the KKK. It wasn't violence or obscenities. It was the American flag, and the context was everything. It was a Cinco de Mayo event. Kids wanted to disrupt the Cinco de Mayo event by wearing American flags and making a big deal of it. And the courts held that the school had the discretion to say, you are wearing disruptive apparel, please take it off or cover it. The policy should say something like that. When apparel is deemed to be disruptive, et cetera, the school has the right to intervene as necessary, appropriately, et cetera. Not, we ban Nazi stuff, or you're not going to ban the American flag, and yet, in that circumstance, getting that shirt off that kid was right and supported by the courts. So I like policies that focus on the outcome you're trying to avoid, disruption of the student body, and are not narrow to say, well, you can't wear this, you maybe can wear that.
Kim?
I have sort of a practical comment, which is I think that some of the drug paraphernalia category might need to change soon in order to incorporate some of the vaping equipment or something. And also, I know that the high school is still sort of, you know, is definitely struggling with the phone issue and what classes you use them in, what classes you don't, and how to handle that. And so I'm wondering, because to get to this point here, you know, you guys put some work in and did a lot of talking, you know, staff was involved. And so how flexible, you mentioned flexible, how flexible is this document going to be? Are you going to be able to revise this you know, when these other situations, you know, when you want to take action on some of these other situations? How do you see that happening?
I see that happening perhaps through concentric circles of stakeholder engagement, and that would include, I think we mentioned, really looking clearly at our feedback from students and from families and from staff members that this is an impact point to. And I do believe that it's a living document, and it should be, as we're trying to catch up with the different experiences that students bring to our campus. I agree.
Thank you.
So it'll be officially promulgated once a year in the student handbook, but it will be changing during the year as you discover there are problems with it or there are new things that should be added.
If we see some glitches, but we do hope that it becomes a pillar of what we all expect as a reaction to student behaviors.
Okay, so if you do make a change, how will you promulgate that change?
We would go through the concentric circles.
I mean, how would you let people?
The stakeholding groups, for example, we could go through our department chairs first. We could go through the staff. We could get some feedback from students. We could go through the IIC. We could certainly go through site council, and eventually we'd bring it back to the board.
Right. Okay. And then it would, if it's in the middle of the year and there's no new student handbook coming out, do you have a way to let everybody know that this change has been made?
We certainly could through advisories, and we mentioned a little bit in terms of the stakeholding groups that we would run this through by.
Okay.
Yeah.
Charlie?
So Ross, I'm still thinking about your comments, which actually you indicated you were trying to accommodate some of the points he had raised, and I don't know if you've already thought about that, thought about making some small changes. It seemed to me that for the examples you gave, electronics, the flavor of the comments that you were putting forward were, it shouldn't just say possession or use of iPhone or Bluetooth speakers. It should say something like possession or use of iPhones or Bluetooth speakers when not allowed, or something like that, that makes it clear that there are occasions when it is and occasions when it isn't. So I assume that you can accommodate some of that?
We have, yeah. We'll send you the updated version.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, and worth just a comment on process for the audience. So we see the board packet on Thursday. All the members of the board are free to send in questions for clarification, et cetera. And I absolutely, reading through this, I said, well, this doesn't make sense, and sent them off to Val, who would send them out, say, to the sites and the people involved in the particular issues. Get those questions from the board. So when I say, well, what about this, and Ms. Ritchie says, well, we've addressed that. It's not, ESP. It's because she's gotten a couple of days.
Thanks.
Well, that does raise a question. We're being asked to approve something which is sort of in flux here. I'm not sure I understand quite where we are with that.
I was going to say, I think if the board wants to approve the matrix at this stage of its iteration, with the understanding that Principal Ritchie and her staff continually will be working on this as a living document and will be making adjustments as needed. And I know there was some question about, can we have more clarity that can be worked on by Ms. Ritchie and her staff as we continue into throughout the rest of the school year into the next year.
I think that we have two options. We can approve it tonight with the understanding that we'll see a revised version, or we can table it and ask that it be brought back either in a meeting or more likely on consent with the changes, and approve it at that time. And that's, up to you guys. What would you prefer? Is it close enough that you're comfortable approving it with the understanding that there are changes coming, or do you really want to see the changes before you approve it?
So I think I might like to ask Ross and maybe Kim also, because you've raised more specific points. Are you comfortable if we approve it and just have it, if we approve this tonight and just see the final version later?
I would think that sort of process would want it to come back as a document admitted into the agenda and for approval on the consent calendar. I trust staff and the administration to have listened. I absolutely think it's in the public interest to then have a published matrix in the agenda of the next meeting, at which point we can vote and approve.
Kim?
I'm fine with that. Having a high schooler, I do want to know the entire matrix so that I can, talk to him and warn him how to behave.
Okay, so do we have comments from the audience?
So 2 quick comments. Number one is I really want to congratulate the folks who worked on this, because the previous matrix was, to say the least, confusing and a lot of instances unusable. By the way, I'm Ron Rosenbaum. I'm a private Albany citizen. Saying that, there were three comments or questions or maybe suggestions I have. Number one is, the other thing I needed to say is I didn't look at this until today, so I didn't get a chance to talk to anyone on the board or to the superintendent about this, and I didn't even realize it was coming up. I did notice the vagaries that Ross has mentioned, and I think those can be cleaned up. There are two issues that I wanted to address. Number one is on page 146, which is fire alarms, pulling fire alarms.
Oh, yeah.
Pulling a fire alarm is a very dangerous thing, and it's also illegal, at least to my understanding. In the fall of 2003, in my new role in Albany Unified, I was briefed on the fact that the year before, at least, there was a terrible number of disruptive fire alarms pulled, and that created not only a potential dangerous situation, but disruption of instruction. The new administration that came in took note of that and put in, and that was me actually, put in cameras that faced all the fire alarms so that we wouldn't have the weekly or daily pulling of fire alarms. And then it was made clear to the entire student body that this was an illegal act and would be treated as such, and the police would have to be involved. After that fact, over the next 4 years, we had 2 alarm pulls, and one was an accident. So I would say we need to take pulling fire alarms more seriously and make sure that students understand that they're doing something illegal. We don't want to the least amount, we don't want disruption. So I would suggest taking a look at that. The other is under threats, and I didn't see anything that defined what a terrorist threat is. And I really think that given the state of affairs that we're in right now, that we might want to add something that separates out, something that defines what a terrorist threat is, either by the law or by whatever our values are, and talk about separate ways of handling that because. So that's what I have to say. Thanks.
Yeah.
I want to thank the work that's been done. This is really incredible. The only thing I would ask is that what I didn't see, and maybe you can point it out to me, is mental health issues, children who have mental health issues or who have disabilities that have IEPs, and what's going to be the response as far as discipline goes. And they can't all be treated the same. Some children have delayed executive functions that also, doesn't allow for them to respond the same way anybody else would. So I would just ask if there's something in there, maybe I missed it, which is absolutely fine. But if you could include that as well. And also, as part of this collective, I can't wait, my other son is going to be going to high school in the fall. But I would also ask that the school board and this new fresh period that we're going through at the high school allow for there to also be recognition of the nationalities and the diversity that we have in the schools. Ramadan is about to start next week on the 15th. What do we do at Eid? What does it mean, and how do we observe that as well as the district, right? Allowing our families to be able to share that as a community, whether it's Cinco de Mayo or Hispanic Heritage Month, which I personally don't like to use the term Hispanic, but something along those lines that we kind of look forward to in the next coming months and in the next school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. Just to reiterate that the counseling piece is so essential, and one of the statistics we were able to surface is that the response by our assistant principals and by Mr. McNally on the increase has been counseling as opposed to just reverting to suspensions. And so you saw that a year ago, only 13% of our students were counseled after an infraction, where this year 34% of our students were counseled. And so that includes students with all ranges of mental health strengths and challenges.
Jacob.
Yeah, just real quickly, I want to thank everybody who put all the time into this. You can see you guys actually did spend a lot of time on it. A couple people have said it before, so I don't need to get into it too much, but just try to make things as clear as possible so we don't have any questions coming up later on. But overall, I think it's very well done.
Sure, and we'll certainly try to blend that clarity with the flexibility that we need this document to also support us in.
Thank you. So I think I'm going to ask for a motion to table this and bring it back at the next agenda. The only question is, do you want it brought back in consent, or do you want to have another discussion? Jacob?
Even if it's under consent, if we still have a question, we can, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, right.
Okay, so can we have a motion to table this and bring it back under consent with the changes that have been suggested and most of which have already been put in.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Oh, aye. We have a request to, again, change the agenda slightly and bring up the memorandum of understanding because we have people who've been waiting here to talk on it.
We also have a timing issue.
We also have a timing issue. So the meeting is scheduled to come to a close at 9:25. So I think we'll need a half-an-hour extension if the board is okay with that. Can we agree on that?
Yes, do I need to move for a half-hour extension?
Yes.
I so move.
Thank you. Okay. So we're going to jump to number 5, Memorandum of Understanding between Berkeley City College and the Albany Unified School District Teacher Preparation Pipeline, if that's okay with the rest of the board? Okay.
Thank you, President Black. I'm very happy to bring this back to the board. This is the memorandum of understanding between Berkeley City College and Albany Unified to create a dual enrollment high school college program for our Albany high school students. And we have here tonight Darren McNally, who has been working with us on this project, Dr. Loretta Kane, who will be actually teaching the courses and who actually brought this idea to us, is also here. And I'm going to add you in, Ron, because Ron has really been working as our liaison. And so this memorandum of understanding is a culmination of quite a few months of work. Darren working with at his site, and Dr. Kane and Ron Rosenbaum and I working with the Berkeley City College professor as well as the Peralta Community College District. And so they're here to answer any questions. I know there was a question about what the course is like and what does the field work entail. And so Dr. Kane can address that if the board has any questions. So this is for students to get dual enrollment, and this will happen during, I believe, 7th period, which is at the end of the day. So I'll turn this over to Darren and to Dr. Kane.
Sorry, can I have a quick procedural question? There's some confusion about the sun shining of for CCA coming back. Was that going to be the very end of the meeting or backward? Normally it was supposed to be at 8:30.
Well, it'll be the next item.
Okay, all right, sorry about that.
Dr. King, can you just describe a bit about the course and, of course, the fieldwork course?
Yes. So the field work, which is Education 97, which we're planning on teaching at the high school in the spring, is a field studies class, and students in that class volunteer at for the high school students, we'll probably have them volunteer at the elementary schools to get their fieldwork experience. And they get units for doing their fieldwork, which is the lab part of the class, and they also get units for being part of the lecture part of the class. And hopefully part of the process that we came up with is to have the students do their field work in the elementary schools, perhaps working as paras, and that will fill that need for some extra support in the para situation, as well as give them the volunteer experiences that they need. Any other questions?
If they're working as paras, will that be as paid paras or volunteer paras?
I'm sorry?
If they're working as paras in the schools, will they be paid?
This is a volunteer field studies position, so they don't get paid, but they are working as volunteers, doing whatever the schools are asking them to do.
Yeah. How would that work, Superintendent?
Right, so the students basically would be working in the classroom, and they would be shadowing the teacher. They would help out however the teacher wanted. They would not be taking the place of a para.
No.
They might shadow a para. They might
assist a para.
Assist a para. They could observe. I think that some of these more exact nuances would have to be worked out between Dr. Kane and, I'm looking at Darren to work on what would be the most appropriate, because we're going to have to work with staff as we have people coming into the classroom.
Good, that's just the clarification I needed, because I know there are people here who would be concerned if we said they were replacing paras, but
No, they're not replacing
they're not
paras.
going to do that.
No, their pay will be units, so the more time they put in, the pay is going to be in the units that they earn, and that's flexible depending on how many hours they put in per week.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Others? Kim?
Okay, just because we have a lot of people here that may not have seen this item, and this is the second time we've seen this, it's like almost too good to be true. I think this program, correct me if I'm wrong on any details, will give our high school students the chance to earn community college credit at the high school campus during high school time, and they'll also get credit for on their transcript for a course. So these are education courses that will be taught by a BCC professor on site at AHS. And I think the first semester, the fall semester, is spent on basic education. It's classroom style. And then in the second semester, there's this fieldwork component. And it seems like a really nice opportunity for us to help our high school kids get some down-to-earth experience and some knowledge about the education process that could lead them to taking more classes at BCC and following that pathway, and it also will help us out by involving our students in our schools. Did I get it?
Yeah, wow, you got it right on the money. Thank you. Also, at Berkeley City College, we offer a teacher's aide certificate as well as an AA degree in elementary teacher education. So we're hoping that students get the early college credit at the high school and then come over to Berkeley City College. The degrees are stackable, so meaning that they align, and the two education classes that I'm going to be teaching, one in the fall and one in the spring, are the first two classes for the program. So they'll get a little jump start on their pathway, hopefully to becoming teachers. If they finish the AA degree at Berkeley City College, they'll be encouraged to go on and complete their bachelor's degree and then possibly go on for a teaching credential. Which is what we're hoping for, and bringing them back to Albany Unified to work here. So,
yes, the vision is actually to educate our Albany students and to bring them back to teaching in Albany or to be working as paraprofessionals. Once they graduate from high school, even if they're in the program at BCC, we can hire them. We can also, if they're in a teacher credential program, we can work on having students come back and do their student teaching here in Albany.
Terrific. Other questions? Questions from the audience?
And this is a one-year pilot. So this MOU is for 1 year only. We really want to gauge what the success is so that we can, if it's very successful, engage in the maybe a bigger program the following year.
And to reiterate, no cost to Albany Unified School District.
That's right. It's free for the students, free to the school district. So I want to thank the superintendent, who I know worked very hard to bring this to the district, and Dr. Kane and Darren. I know a tremendous amount of work went into getting this done, and I'm really glad to see it. I think our students will be very lucky that we've got this program in the schools, and it looks like a great program to me. So we need to approve this memorandum of understanding if it's going to go forward. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between Berkeley City College and Albany Unified School District.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you very much.
thank you.
This brings us back to our public hearing to receive the Sunshine Negotiation Proposal from California School Employees Association. I hereby reopen the public hearing. Is there any more public comment on this item? If not, we can close the public, oh, we do. No, please. Yes.
I want to thank the board, and I want to thank our superintendent. I have a great deal of respect for you, as our other members do. I know how hard you're working for us and for your district. We are in a time of great crisis. This is not new to us this year. This has been going on year after year after year for, I don't know, maybe even a decade or more. I don't really know. I was going to go do some history, but sorry I didn't. We can't do business as usual. I wish we could. But the pay is so low, we can't even live in Brentwood or Antioch and drive here. We can't afford the gas. The gas is going up. This, you know, you're going to have to turn some stones. You're going to have to look, how can you skim this, that, and the other thing to bring us back? Because you have incredible people. And I started asking my coworkers, how many of you have a college education? The majority of us do. No less than 2 years, and many, I have several that have master's degrees. And they're working in this district with our children because they respect the job and the position, and they want to make a difference in these lives. We need to be able to do our work. Sunday morning, I got off of work at 3 a.m. I got up at 6:30, and I was at work at 7:30. I was concerned that I wouldn't bring my best to my students that day because I was exhausted. I can't keep doing this. I don't want to do this. I want to do this. Please figure out a way to give us the living wage that we really should have had quite a long time ago. I don't know if it was a housewife mentality and they thought, oh, we'll just bring in the housewives and it's a second job to them. It's a second job to me and a third job. It's a second and third job to most of these people. Thank you. I understand that we are in a financial crisis. I appreciate that. But this isn't new, and it's been going on far too long. The disparaging of 2 to 3% that we've been given whenever the teachers got it, I know that that was then. But this is now, and we just can't do that anymore. That will not be good enough. So please, any way you can find the money, please find the money. We'll work with you the best we can. But when you bring a package, then it's not going to be just a one-year package. It's going to need to show us some tiers of things and an increase of revenues. And we have to figure out as a community how we can work together to help you to raise the funds. We've raised it for other programs. Let's raise it for our employees. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for all your dedication, what you do for our kids, because it's all about the kids, and I know that's why you're here. And I really appreciate you coming out and telling us how you feel, and I certainly hope we can do the right thing by you. Come on.
Hi. Thank you very much to the board and to the superintendent for looking at this and really seriously considering this issue for us.
You can pull that mic up so you don't.
Okay. This is a morale problem. I mean, this goes very deep. I mean, this program, without these people, there is no special education, period. You're just going to have me in the classroom by myself. This is a very deep morale problem that has to be addressed. We can't continue like this, as she stated. I think the other thing you need to remember is that at some point, God forbid, there could be liability coming up too, because we're not going to have enough people to cover all the issues that we have to address in terms of the mental health issues that people face in my classroom. I can only do so much as one person. And so there's liability questions. Families have been very patient with the fact that we're out of compliance. All these issues are coming. So we can either decide to do it now together as a group, or we're going to get forced to do it. And I'm hoping we can do it now. Thank you very much.
Good. Anyone else?
You can pay now or pay later, but it's coming.
Hi, so I'm a new face here. I've been with the district for about 5 years now. I'm at Marin School, and I've been in special education for over a decade in 3 states. And the model that we have really relies on the exceptional paras that are hired. And I just want to show my support for all of the amazing people that I've worked with. We're so lucky to have the level of commitment that we have from our paras, and as well as the, while of course there are turnover situations, and we all know about the hiring, crisis, if you want to call it that, I'm also utterly impressed by how long many of our paras have been on the job, and I don't know if their pay is reflective of their years of service or if their pay scale includes the option to be given raises based on the number of units of study that they have in pertinent areas. So unfortunately, I missed the first half of tonight's meeting, and I apologize for that, but I'm glad to be here now, and I hope that you really take their concerns very seriously, because our program does rely on the hours that they put in with our students. I run the elementary program by myself. This year there has been another special ed teacher at our site, but that won't be the case next year. So I'm managing every IEP at the elementary level single-handedly. But as much as it's single-handedly, I couldn't do it alone. So it's kind of a strange thing, because legally I'm responsible to make sure those IEPs are being delivered, but I could never do it without the incredible staff that we have. So please find a way to either think about a change in the way that we provide these services, or if we're going to stick with the model that we have now, which I hope that we do, we need to find a way to make sure that our staff are being paid appropriately for their work. Thank you.
I just want to be able to point out, and again, Val, I've mentioned this to you a number of times. When we bring up your salary and your raise, it has nothing to do with you personally. I'm sure we could have a beer when we're not in this room. But I just want to be able to point out that it's the one example most recently that comes to mind that we can use to be able to say, well, consistently there's been said that there's no money. I also want to be able to say, in my comment, pay now or pay later, is that you can either find right now the funding to be able to pay the workers that they absolutely deserve a raise, a decent raise, or you can decide to pay later. And what I mean by that is that families like myself that have children in special ed are considering a class action lawsuit for the violations that have been consistent on our children, that you have, this district has been out of compliance for all of our kids. There's a lot of families that are looking right now and listening to us, and they keep getting text messages to please say pay now or pay later, because all of our children have been disserviced. And it's not because of the workers, it's really about the best way and example to keep someone at the stealth, Valerie level. These workers, paras, are Valerie level and then some, because they're handling so many children with so many different needs, and they don't have a playbook. They're told, I need you to cover so-and-so child with all the diversity of needs that our children have, and they're still able to service and treat our kids with respect and not make our children feel like they are less than or put in a silo. And I just, the best way to compliment someone on the work they're doing is show them with the pay, right? It's the best example. Much the same way that our school board members felt in December, that Val needed that raise to be able, we could keep her here. I need you guys to feel just as compelled to keep all of our paras and keep all the workers here with some dignity and respect. And please, if they're happy, my kid is happy, but when they're struggling and trying to make ends meet, that transcends to my kid, and that is already stressful in itself. So thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. I've said this many times before, but I'm a disabilities advocate. I've been doing this for 25 years. I'm having her sign for me because this is what you should do at every meeting. I'm also a compliance officer, a federal compliance officer. It's what I do. And you put your money where your values are. Plain and simple. I can't tell you how to allocate your funds. I can just tell you that as a parent, personally as a disabilities advocate, I don't particularly care for the words special education. I just don't. It's not words that we particularly use in this community. We have children with various learning challenges and different ways that they need to learn. But this district has a responsibility to meet those learning challenges. And I would just ask for you to be thoughtful and proactive in thinking about the mission and the vision that you have for every child in this district, and put the money where the values are. From a selfish standpoint, I believe that people come before many of the things where we've been putting money. We put money on consultants. We put money on studies and surveys. We should be able to put money in the people who take care of our most vulnerable children. Thank you.
Mr. Ritchie, Albany Middle School teacher and special education teacher. It was about almost a year ago that I approached this board last June to outline some of my concerns about the special education model. And part of that model was also our wonderful educators here, paraprofessionals. I'm really heartened to see where we have carried this to date. But I want to also just kind of touch on a couple things that I'm concerned about. And hopefully going forward with Ms. Williams and I guess Diane Marie and whoever else is involved in that process is to look at not just the pay situation. I really appreciate Mr. Clark bringing up the, I guess, $15 an hour living wage, I believe it was. And I guess what I'd be concerned about is that if that is approved, that would be kind of like, well, we did something. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
A start, you know.
Right, a start,
trying
yeah.
to get our foot in the door.
No, I appreciate it, but I also just, having had some experiences here, I don't want it just to be like, hey, we did it and it's going away. We've all Googled things and we've seen pay as much as $23 an hour down in the South Bay, same job. $19 an hour, $21 an hour. And I'm certainly not going to be up here and negotiate for another union. That's not what I should be doing at all, but I want to show that I support their efforts very much so. I've also heard that, from Ms. Williams' trips to the various sites and interacting with paraeducators and teachers, that the job of paraprofessional, I had approached this board last year with my own ideas that as a teacher here for 12, 13 years now, the relationship of paraprofessional and teacher really needs to be solid, meaning full shifts, okay?
less rotation, day to day, changing your job every single day, doesn't allow you to develop that necessary bond or relationship, not only with the teacher to help enhance curriculum to support our students with special needs. You cannot move people around almost daily, at least in my world, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. That doesn't really help the situation. It's not helpful for the student. It's not helpful for the para-educator who's expected to now know 6th, 7th, and 8th grade curriculum, which is tremendous. But it just doesn't help the team. There should be this triad going on: the teacher, the paraprofessional, and the student. And there needs to be continuity, at least within a year. 6th grade, rotate. You don't need to move 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, but we need some kind of continuity to develop the best optimum situation for our students in need and to build a really cohesive team. In addition to that, I like the comments from another teacher here who said, you know, these folks, and from the high school too, and from Marin, that they have to learn all this curriculum. And we've talked about this. When do they do that? When do they do that? As teachers, you know, we know that we go home and we crack the books, and I can't tell you how many summers I spent going through every single math problem that my students do, because that's the kind of person I am when I'm learning my stuff. But are these people paid for that? Have they gone to get their teaching credential? Is that an expectation? But the professional people that they are, they have big hearts and they're in this to make a difference. They are trying to learn all that, but they're not allotted time. They're not allotted a prep type period or some kind of collaboration time with us. And they should be shoulder to shoulder with teachers as far as you know, hours of the day and in coming to staff meetings so that we can collaborate. You know, and I understand there are some folks who, you know, they want to have a part-time job. I respect that. But I also think that the demands of our students, as we've clearly seen, are changing. They're becoming more and more demanding, their needs, which means we need more continuity and we need people here full-time, I think, to develop those relationships and those skills. And they need time, just like us teachers, in the way that we can sit together and have department meetings and discuss things. I'd like to have them there with us. And how do we do that? I look at full shifts, you know, from morning till the start of school till after school. There's plenty of work to do. Don't worry, nobody's going to be getting over, okay? They're going to earn their money, okay? So, you know, I get it. We got to find the money, and I appreciate the comments that, please, you know, I know it's tough, but we need to really keep these wonderful workers who, as this one teacher just said, she's legally bound. You know, it's like we're becoming paralegals, how litigious these things are, and we're one teacher, and yet we rely on these folks right here so much, okay? And another comment that was made earlier was, you know, maybe in addition, we need to have more special education teachers too, because, you know, they're not teachers per se, okay? But I'll tell you what, I'd stack any of these folks up. They could teach a lot of these things, okay? So please think about that.
If I could just add one more thing, one omission here, besides paraprofessionals, if that wasn't enough, is of course the backbones of our school, which are our secretaries and our custodians, which we would fall apart without as well. So this is an amazing group of people that clearly needs help. So thank you.
Okay, before we close the public hearing, anyone want the last word? Okay, we're going to close the public hearing, and that brings us to a vote on the Sunshine Proposal. Do we have a motion to accept the Sunshine Proposal from CSEA?
I
so move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you all for coming out. Our last item is to open a public hearing on the district's sunshine proposal for the same contract. Public hearing is now open. Does anyone want to comment on the district's sunshine proposal? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Do we have a motion to approve the district's sunshine proposal?
So I move that we approve the district's sunshine proposal.
All in favor, say aye.
We
need a second. Sorry.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And that brings us to agenda items, matters introduced by the board.
The board asks for the Albany High School discipline matrix to be brought back at the next board meeting on consent.
Anything else? Ross?
Yeah, something Clell said prompted me to wonder what's happening with the soda tax revenues. Are any coming to the district? If so, what are they being earmarked for? Are any of them going to nutrition education, as Clell was suggesting he hadn't any money for?
Great question. Can we just get a report on that at another
That'd be
meeting?
fine.
Would you like this as a Friday update?
Friday update would be
I
fine.
can do it on a Friday update.
Perfect. Anything else? Meeting adjourned.